Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would chat with you guys a little bit about one of the things that I do with clients, because historically I've always told people that you should be able to get to a 225 bench, a 315 squat, 405 deadlift, all 4 reps off a novice linear program, that's normal, you should be able to do it. Well, early on I thought that was the case because most people that I've worked with in the past were able to do so. When I put out some of those programs originally, tons of people were able to do that in less than a year in the gym. I saw their logs. But what I found is that over time, many years later, because yes, it has been that long, I've had a lot of time to learn different things and talk to people and look at their logs and coach people. And what I've always found is that a pretty significant number of people stall before that. And by significant, it could be as many as half. Now, I obviously get a lot of clients who come to me who are in that category. I have clients who are advanced lifters, but I also get clients who fail to reach even my novice standards, and some of them not only ran one of my programs and didn't get there, they've gone on to other people's programs and still didn't reach these numbers, and still didn't reach them. Even on programs written by other people done after one of mine. And so they come to me and we generally get them there. We get them up to that relatively quickly. And the 225 bench is kind of a big one. So what sort of strategy do I utilize for them to get them there? Well, first of all, I step back and we have to get their training on point. Because usually, and by usually I mean the majority of the time, there's something very wrong with their execution of lifts, their setups, things like that, if they don't reach those numbers. Oftentimes it's things like they still don't know things like how to get tight on lifts. They're explosive, they're slow, they lift very slowly, they don't understand compensatory acceleration, things like that. Usually you have to get them learning to get tight and to be explosive. And I'm talking across the board on every lift. I usually find most of the people who fail to reach those strength standards, not all of them, but most of them, they still don't know how to actually lift. They don't understand the concept of bracing or tightness or squeezing a bar or moving a weight fast. So we've got to sort those things first. Now, outside of that, what I usually find is that these are people who are not genetically gifted in the strength department. So how do I get them up to that and past it? Because I've done it with several, and I have several other guys right now who are on their way to doing that, who did start with a sub 225 bench. And a lot of them will have stuff like a 185 or 180 or a 190 3-rep max or 5-rep max. So what do? Well, the first thing I do is that I realize that most of these people, they're not genetically gifted in the strength department. They don't have amazing neuromuscular efficiency. Trying to get them into a really low volume training or minimalist training doesn't work. I've got to take them off a full body and put them on upper lower. That's usually the first thing that we do. Right? We get them onto an upper lower so that I can put a little more total pressing volume in twice a week. Right? And get more hypertrophy. So that's the first thing I do. And usually I will bring them down. Let's say that they're working with something, we'll ballpark it, a 185 5-rep max. And we want to get them to a 225 bench. I'll bring them all the way down to like a 165 5x5 twice a week. And we'll start taking them up using linear programming again. We're still going to use linear progression. It's not periodization. So that's one of the things I do, and then I identify their weak links. If their shoulders are the weak link in their bench, we'll do overhead pressing twice a week. If their chest is the weak link, we might do dips twice a week. If their triceps are a weak link, I'll put extra tricep work at them. It could be closed grip bench pressing, it could be JM press, it could be extra extensions. I will put extra volume towards their triceps. We do extra volume towards whatever their weak link is. So they're going to do like 10 sets of benching with 5s every week between the 2 workouts, and we're going to do supplemental work. In some cases, it could be 2 supplemental lifts, right? It could be doing overhead pressing. It could be extensions. It could be dips. It could be, again, whatever addresses their muscular weak links, because we have to get those areas growing. So what I usually do at that point, I might, just as an example, take them all the way down to 165 for a 5x5, and then add 5 pounds every week. Or every workout. If they're able to handle it, we might be doing 170, 175, 180. So within a couple of weeks, they might be all the way back up to 180 for a 5x5. But usually I've got to get them focused on a few really good quality sets and then volume accessory work. So I'll start taking them back up. And as we approach their old previous best, let's say that they could do 5 as a lifetime best for 185. And that's not uncommon. You see a lot of guys who run programs who are at areas like that. So what I will oftentimes do as we get up to something in the range of the 180, I might start taking them down to triples. Okay, I'll take them down to triples. And as soon as we get back to 180, I might have them do a 5x5 with 180, then I'll drop them down to a 5x3. Then the very next workout will go to 185 for a 3x3. Now, because we've now lost volume, I have to add more supplemental work. So usually at that point, when I take them down to a 3x3, I'll either add a second supplemental lift of some type. So if they're doing overhead press, we'll add a tricep extension or a dip or something else. Whatever's necessary. But I make sure they're getting sufficient volume, because 3 sets of 3 on the bench as a primary exercise is just not enough to keep them growing. But usually I've had to learn them to be explosive. What I'll have them do is focus on explosive reps. They obviously have to record these things. And I would recommend all of you record your lifts. You guys who say, I can't record my lifts, my gym won't let me, well, you're going to be stuck the rest of your life. Like that's your gym is preventing your progress. You need to be able to analyze your own lifts. Okay, that is honestly such an easy tool to use that we have today that is basically negligent if you're not recording your lifts. But I will have them go to a 3x3. And then we will do the next workout 4x3, the next workout 5x3. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's silly. Shouldn't they be pushing their limits? What if they could do 5x3 on day 1? Yeah, that sort of mentality is a reason you guys get stuck. Because we need to have wiggle room to progress. Because if you start reaching your limits, we've got to change something. Because these are people who have already stalled on linear. So if you're just taking your final set to failure pretty much, a limit set all-out grinder every time you train, and you're stuck, well, that's partially why you're stuck. Not giving yourself enough quality volume, or you're not giving yourself room for progressive overload, which is why we have to program stuff like this. But I have them focus on being as explosive as possible. And we're now using, again, a weight that they can do more than 3 reps with, just slightly. It might be a 5-rep max. We're doing it explosively, and then we work up to the 5 sets of 3. As soon as they reach that, we drop down to 190 for 3x3 again. So over the course of 3 workouts, which takes a week and a half, we will go 3x3, 4x3, 5x3. Then I will have them add 5 pounds and go back to a 3x3. We'll repeat that. And again, that takes a week and a half. Takes 3 workouts. Takes 3 workouts. And you can repeat this process. And when you get someone to the point to where they can do 205 for 5 sets of 3, yeah, that's a 225 bencher. That guy can now bench 225. You can peak him up. People say, what do you mean peak him up? Well, we would pick him up. We would have him have a workout where he hits a heavy triple. Instead of a 3x3, I might work him up to 215 for a triple. For a peak set. Well, if he can do 215 for a triple, we know he can hit 225. So then the next workout, he can come in and hit a 225. You just peak him. The other thing to remember, though, is that you have to have supplemental work at this point. People who are like this do not have the best neuromuscular efficiency. These are not people who grow off a 3x3. Okay, if people were like this were growing off a 3x3, they would have hit 225 for a 5x5 already, with no supplemental work, just off linear progression. All right, these are people who require more training volume to see any growth stimulus, and you have to get them to learn to be more explosive on top of it. So the other main thing there is that as you start reducing that volume back down from a 5x5 twice a week, when you start dropping down to triples, it is important that they get enough supplemental work. That's the other big deal. They're going to have some extra work for their pecs or their delts or their triceps. And particularly whatever their weakest muscle is in benching. Because one of those three muscles is going to be limiting them to some extent. And so we've got to do a little bit extra work for it. And that's what I do for these guys. That's my normal protocol for getting someone to a 225 bench who is stuck and could not do so on linear progression. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.